Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk to Freddy Gray right now. He's US editor of The Spectator. Very good morning to you, Freddy.
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Thank you for joining me. Well, I'm probably doing better than Keir Starmer because I didn't have to sort of sit and look like a chump next to the US president, the most powerful man in the world, while he sort of yapped on for the best part of an hour and a half yesterday and just sort of like a nodding dog sat there. But pretty much every world leader has to do that. Just first of all, you've watched a lot of these where, I mean, every time someone's invited to the White House, I mean, look, we saw what happened to Zelensky and he got monstered by J.D. Vance as well. But as a general, looking at them generally, did Keir Starmer fare well or badly from that meandering press conference that the Sun King gave yesterday?
I think overall you have to say he fared pretty well. Trump was very keen to say he's my friend repeatedly. Trump clearly likes him for whatever reason. It seems to be his voice. For some reason, unlike every single British person, Trump finds his voice appealing. But I do think you could see where the cracks are in their relationship and where they could get worse, because Trump is deliberately oblivious about aspects of Keir Starmer. He doesn't take a great interest in British politics. I think it's fair to say he takes an interest in personalities. And it was very interesting. He started when he started talking about Nigel Farage. He said, "Nigel Farage, he's my friend. Keir Starmer, he's my friend. They're two parties. Yeah. He didn't mention the Conservative Party at all because the Conservative Party probably doesn't cross his mind.
No, indeed, it's very interesting. And again, he's Donald Trump. Even Trump fans must accept he's fairly loose on facts. He kind of makes up, mortality figures in the Ukraine war. He does. They're up by like a factor of 5 or something. I mean, he just makes up a lot of things and announces these things as facts. By the time you fact checked it, he's on to the next complete nonsense that he's saying. But he said some quite sensible things. Let's have a little listen once again to that clip of what he told, advice he gave to our Prime Minister about how to beat Nigel Farage at the next election. Here's what he had to say.
The one who gives you the lowest energy prices and the best kind of energy, the one that keeps you out of wars. He's kept you out of wars. And in your case, a big immigration component, because I know that your attitude has become strong on immigration, strong on the toughness of immigration.
I mean, this was a pretty good advice. As far as our callers and our messages today are saying, though, Freddie, they're saying even if it was a big if, Keir Starmer did achieve that, they're not sure they would vote for him. But there's no doubt at all. I mean, Donald Trump knows that actually what British voters want is very similar to what American voters wanted when they elected Donald Trump last year.
Well, he spelt it out pretty clearly. It's immigration, but it's also low taxes. What's interesting about Trump's tariffs and so on, that they've caused all this upheaval in the sort of global economy. At the same time, though, economic confidence in America is ticking up because he's extended the tax cuts. He's actually made the tax cuts better for Americans. So while they may be worried about how much they're going to pay for an iPhone, they are seeing more money in their pockets and their confidence is growing. How we would wish to have that in Britain.
Yeah, and he's reaped 50 billion in tariffs. And again, that is a tax take. That is the thing. Tariffs are a tax. I don't know why he hates taxes, but he loves tariffs, even though they're a tax. But there we are. There was also an interesting moment when he attacked Sadiq Khan, not by name, but the London mayor, and he said he was a nasty man doing a terrible job. And then Keir Starmer had to sort of interrupt with this sort of, he's a friend of mine. That was all very awkward.
Well, but this is Trump's muscle memory for when he's in Britain. He's been doing it. I mean, he did it in his first visits to Britain as president. He started attacking. He had a war of words on Twitter, which is now X.
Didn't he have it on the tarmac when he's visiting his first time? He had it on the tarmac with Sadiq Khan before he'd even got off the plane.
Yes, and then they exchanged fire over Twitter, and it's just something he does hold grudges against certain people, and Sadiq Khan is one of them. But it was wonderful to watch Keir Starmer squirm.
That was good fun.
And I mean, the thing about Trump press conferences, they're sort of odd. They're actually quite boring if you watch the whole thing, but the clips are just gold always.
I know. I have to say, I was yesterday afternoon. I was sort of like, mate, I've got stuff to do. I really need you to stop talking at some point. And the sight of all the aides sitting there, absolutely silent, just when is this going to end? But there was some interesting stuff, and particularly Ukraine. He talked about how Russia's deadline, the 50-day deadline, there's 35 days to go on that to come to the table and come to a ceasefire deal. He's now taken that down to sort of 10 or 12 days. That seemed to be a significant development, welcomed certainly by President Zelensky of Ukraine. But we know that his deadlines have a habit of moving, don't we?
Well, he can always pause. He pauses, but he doesn't fold. I think on Ukraine, it was interesting because the pressure from Starmer was clearly on Gaza. Get Trump to say something about Gaza that they can run as, oh, he's turning on Israel. He did a tiny bit, but not really. Most of what he said about Israel was about the Israeli hostages, which is not what Keir Starmer wanted him to talk about at all. But what he takes away with one hand, he gives with another, Trump, because he then just gives 10, 12 days to Russia on sanctions, which is a dramatic escalation. And he says sanctions or tariffs of up to 100%, which really is him turning against Putin in a way that a few months ago would have looked impossible.
Yeah, but crucially, those secondary sanctions, those secondary sanctions on the countries that are buying his oil and his gas and doing trade, that would have, in the Indias and the Chinas, that would have a massive impact, wouldn't it? But there's also obviously a lot of questions yesterday for Donald Trump about Gaza and about Israel, and he was saying that there is real starvation. He's seen the pictures, and we have seen pictures. Some of those obviously are genuine pictures. Some of those are propaganda. They are very, very sad. They are children who have, congenital illness, and it's not as a result of food shortages that they are looking like that. But some of it obviously will absolutely be real. Either way, it's an absolute disaster for those people, those families and those children, and action needs to be taken. But how likely is it that Donald Trump will put more pressure on Israel, particularly on Benjamin Netanyahu, over humanitarian aid? Or do you think now the aid is going in on a bigger scale that actually that he's going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu?
Well, I think Donald Trump's got a very good gut instinct for where public opinion is. And it does seem in the last 2 or 3 weeks in particular that public opinion has shifted against Israel quite dramatically. So he may start to put serious pressure on Netanyahu. There's also, you have to consider his relationship with Netanyahu is complicated. Yeah. He was apparently very cross and angry when Netanyahu struck Syria with missiles the other day. And he regards, or people in his tight circle regard Netanyahu as an unreliable ally. They're very pro-Israel. They're just unsure about Netanyahu. Yeah. And so there could be a breakdown in relations between Trump and Netanyahu, but Trump's support for Israel is pretty locked in. Yeah. His son-in-law is Jewish.
I wish he'd had the same attitude towards Ukraine as he has to Israel. In terms of Keir Starmer having an emergency cabinet meeting today, I mean, again, I don't know what the sudden emergency is about Gaza, but also about possible, these pressure that Keir Starmer is facing internationally, but also on his own backbenchers within his own cabinet from his own deputy prime minister Angela Rayner about recognising an independent, Palestinian state. What do you make of that? Because we know that Keir Starmer's, been under pressure on this. Emmanuel Macron said that France recognised a Palestinian state, and Donald Trump dismissed that, saying it was utterly irrelevant.
Well, you're quite right. The sudden emergency on Gaza, as far as Labour is concerned, is not what's happening there. It's what's happening within the party and within its voter, its base. Labour voters are extremely upset and expressing their anger about Gaza to Labour. They also have the problem of Gaza independence, a sort of Muslim threat to their left. And the backbenchers are in revolt. So they have an internal problem there that they are desperate to address somehow. But Starmer does not want to turn on Israel. So he's in a very difficult position.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fascinated to see how he managed to resolve this. Really good to talk to you. Thank you very much, indeed. Freddy Gray, US editor of The Spectator. Tom Slater, editor of Spectator Online, to come back to you. Right now, people might be seeing on the screen periodically Donald Trump is opening his new golf course in Aberdeenshire. He's due to make, in fact, I think he's just started speaking in the last couple of moments. Again, I'm not really here to publicise golf courses in Scotland, whoever they're owned by. But there's no doubt at all. I mean, a lot of these world leaders, whether it's Macron, whether it's Trump, whether it's Keir Starmer, they are facing an awful lot of pressure over the issue of Gaza, and a lot of this is propaganda pressure. I'm saying, people are terribly concerned about children dying. isn't everybody? I mean, who hasn't got a moral conscience about that? But they care absolutely zero for a child dying of starvation in Sudan or anywhere else in Africa, by the way. But apparently they care terribly strongly about the children in one particular tiny little slice of land in Gaza. And that's the bit that I find extraordinary.
No, absolutely. And I think it's not only the selective outrage, but it's also the lack of willingness to understand the broader context here in terms of who started this war, why it's continuing to rage, why there have been problems in delivering the aid that the people of Gaza so desperately need.
And why Israel can't just go, oh, OK, we're done now.
It's always a much more complicated picture than people are willing to accept. They just have bought this phony narrative, but it inflames the discussion that we need to have needlessly about how you actually do right by the people who are suffering in the middle of this war.
Absolutely. Again, they're mainly suffering because they are ruled by a terrorist genocidal organisation called Hamas. Had they tried giving up the hostages, releasing the hostages, downing their weapons and saying we will no longer attempt to do another October 7th every single day that we can do that on Israel, because then the war could be over and the suffering could be over. It's entirely in Hamas's hands, who are the ones who've scuppered the latest peace talks. But again, no criticism of Hamas for that, always criticism of Israel. And at the end of the day, that's the reality.